How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to look about the iPhone XR and the iPhone 11 and primarily focusing on the cameras in this video. I'll be making another separate review where I look at both phones in depth, but today this video is going to be camera only, and that's because the camera is one of the biggest upgrades in the entire phone. So the iPhone 11 sports two cameras on the back now instead of the one, so it does have a ultra wide angle lens, and it's picked up a host of new features as well that the A13 Bionic allow the phone to do. So what we're going to be doing here right now is looking at both these phones and figuring out if the camera differences are actually worth it. So there are going to be four parts to this video. The first one is going to be a blind test. So the blind test will be two photos side by side, one taken on the XR and one taken on the 11. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be switching around the photos. So not every photo, like A is not going to be the same phone all through the test. B is not going to be the same phone all through the test. So what I want you guys to do is look at every photo, pause the video, look at it carefully, choose which one you like better, and then let me know down in the comments below, or keep it in mind for yourself. And then at the end of that segment, I'll put up all the results on the screen about which photo was which camera, and it should be a fun little thing to see if you guys can actually see a camera difference, or you guys think that the XR is good enough. Number two, we're going to do a video test. So of course Apple has touted that the video quality has improved, and I love taking videos on my iPhones. They're so amazing. I've taken a bunch of videos with my XR over the last year, and I'm very interested to see what the camera comparison is like between the two. And also we have the wide angle test. So now since this doesn't have a wide angle test, I'll just add a few photos of this with a standard lens and then this with a wide angle, kind of just to compare and contrast. You really can't do a apple to apple comparison because this doesn't have a a wide angle lens. And finally, we're gonna do the dark mode test. Now, I didn't include any low light photos in the blind test, mainly because it would just be too easy. You'd know right away which phone is which. There's no point in that. That's why I didn't bother. So the dark mode photos are going to be at the very end, and they are astonishing. So I am so happy we've got dark mode, and I want to show you guys what the difference is like between the XR and the 11 when you're in a darker environment. So with all that laid out, let's get right into the blind camera test. Alright guys, so before I show you the results, please make sure you have them all written down, and here are the results. Alright, so blind camera test over. Let's move on to the videos. Alright guys, so here is a front camera sample of the iPhone XR over here on the left and the iPhone 11 on the right. So it is an extremely bright and sunny day, and as you guys know, the iPhone XR does not have any extended dynamic range, whereas the iPhone 11 is supposed to. On the initial readout, it doesn't look like anything's up, but the one thing that is immediately noticeable is, one, the sharpness, the quality, and B, the crop, just look at how much more is in frame on the iPhone 11 compared to the iPhone XR. So yeah, the front camera definitely is a big step up on the iPhone 11. Alright guys, this is the rear camera tests of the iPhone 11 on the right and the XR on the left, both at 1080 60 FPS, because that's what the video is going to be, and then there's no point in me filming 4K since my final output will not be 4K. So just look at that. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a shot of the extended dynamic range and just the way things are looking. And let me get you right into some direct sunlight. See how it handles. So video is supposed to be very much so improved this year on the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro Max compared to the XR. So far I am definitely seeing some improvements. And another cool thing is you can go all the way wide angle on the iPhone 11, which you cannot on the the XR. So look at that. That wide angle definitely gives you a lot more perspective compared to not having it. Just looks like a really cool tool. Alright guys, so continuing on the camera test, so we're going to look at the indoor low light conditions for the XR on the left and the iPhone 11 on the right. So in the previews, it is looking like there's a lot more noise on the iPhone XR, but the 11 is looking a little bit more darker comparatively. It just might be my screen brightness, I'm not sure. But yeah, this is a very low light condition. It is not very bright in here. It is quite dark. So this should be a good idea of what a low light video looks like. Alright guys, so for the final video test, we're going to be looking at the front cameras. Both are at 1080 60 as usual, as all the other camera samples. And the thing I'm noticing is that I think the brightness is down on my iPhone 11, which is on the right. The XR is on the left. The quality is looking a little bit better. There's a lot less noise. It just looks a step up comparatively. Both are not good. They're very mediocre. It is a pretty low light situation, I'm not gonna lie. It is a tough situation to be filming in, but yeah, the camera is definitely a step up, but still could be a lot better on the front. So surprisingly enough, videos do have a little bit of a difference there. So if you do take videos, I think that you guys can look at them side by side and kind of decide if that $100 is worth it to you. Personally, yeah, it's worth it to me. So let's move on and look at the thing we've been waiting for, the last two segments. Let's look at the wide angle and the dark mode photos, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a commentary about just things I've noticed here. So let's start off by looking at a night mode picture that was taken in low light, but not something that was too ridiculous. As you can see, even with the iPhone XR photo, you can tell out most of the major details. Nothing is very extremely dark, but definitely everything looks brighter on the iPhone 11. It's almost kind of like in this photo as if you've turned up the brightness on your screen. There's not too much to differentiate. But as we move forward to the next photo, here you can see that the iPhone 11 does a much better job at just making the phone look like a phone. It doesn't look like a piece of black slab, whatever. You can even tell out details like the Apple logo, the 3 cameras on the iPhone 11 Pro Max that's in the photo. And when we look at the next selfie, now this is where things get a little bit complicated, because while there is an improved camera, front camera specifically on the iPhone 11, it doesn't use the night mode that the rear camera can. So that means that front-facing low-light photos are still pretty much just as bad. A little bit better, I'd say like 10% better, but this is something I would not be happy to share at any point. So yeah, it's a little bit concerning. Moving on, let's look at another sample. As you can see, just overall makes everything look a little bit better, pulls in more detail, more light, without making it feel like the photo was taken like it was just kind of everything, all the brightness settings were maxed out. That doesn't feel like that. It just feels a little bit more natural, like the room had more light. Now, a similar shot to the one before, but you guys can see this one is struggling a lot more when there's a lot more reflections and shadows and everything. The night mode does start to suffer a little bit, but definitely is miles ahead of the iPhone XR. Overall, not the worst performance on either, but definitely the iPhone 11 looks so much better. And another one here, this one is particularly my favorite, not just because of the cars, but because this photo almost looks like it was taken with really good lighting compared to what the reality was. There was just one light turned on in the room. It wasn't that bright. In fact, it was very similar. It was the exact same lighting situation compared to the first photo, but here you guys can see that the lights, everything just looks so much better in the iPhone 11 photo. So night mode is a huge upgrade that I think that is vital to low light performance and looks amazing. Moving on, let's look at a portrait mode on the rear camera. So here we have this rear camera portrait where you guys can see the iPhone XR is limited to taking pictures of only people. So it can only take a portrait mode photo if a person is detected. That's because it's doing mostly software-based blurs, whereas the iPhone 11 can use the information from the ultra-wide to add depth. But overall, you guys can see the iPhone XR just says no person detected and you can't take a portrait photo. But the 11 does an exceptional job, and what I was impressed by is that everything is perfect. My hand is perfectly in focus, and the background is blurred out exceptionally well. Now moving on, let's look at the ultra wide. So these both of these photos are taken from the iPhone 11, standing in the same exact spot. So every ultra wide photo I've taken, when we see the comparison, taken from the same exact spot. So I did not move at all. So as you guys can see on the left, normal lens, what you'd get from your phone right now, that's what I got. And when you compare it to the ultra wide, it just looks ridiculous. Just I can't even believe it. It's just brilliant. Really good field of vision. In fact, it's so good that if you guys pay attention to the bottom of the ultra wide photo, you guys can actually see that my finger is creeping into the shot, even though it was well below the camera. The camera is just so wide that it can capture things well below it as well. So that was just very cool to see. Another one where you guys can see just adds like a really cool perceptive layer to the photo. So now my normal looking living room and dining room turns into this long kind of corridor, which looks super cool. So I'm sure that photographers or people who have a lot of artistic talent will be able to use this ultra wide lens to use that perception and create some beautiful looking photos. And now something a little bit more simple, comparing the iPhone XR to the 11. XR, normal camera, of course, and then the 11 with the ultra wide pushed out. So you guys can see what the difference is. So the image you'd get on the XR, that's it. You couldn't go any further back unless you physically took a few more steps back. But with the 11 standing in the same exact spot, just look at how much more you can get into that frame. And the same goes for the second photo. Just look at it. It almost feels like you're standing 5 steps back comparatively, even though you're standing in the same exact spot. It just looks amazing. And as I said, there's a lot of potential here for some very cool shots that I'm sure we'll be seeing more and more as people have a ultra wide on their phone now. And with all that wrapped up, we can finally talk about these two cameras. With all the videos, all the image samples, all the everything laid out here, I think it's very clear that the iPhone 11 is a much better camera in almost every way. Now, the one thing I will tell you is when you're taking photos in outdoor conditions, when it's good lighting, I could barely tell the difference. I could nitpick here and there, but for the most part, it was really good performance. The two main areas where I saw the biggest jump in improvement, one, low light photography, which is, of course, with that new software feature where Apple is using some kind of computational photography, you just get amazing results when you put them side by side. And number two is the front-facing camera. So for years, I've been complaining about the iPhones having horrible front-facing cameras, and no Apple fanboys were not really agreeing with me. They were like, it's great, it's a good camera. And it was pretty much because they never used an Android phone that had a front camera that really put the iPhone to shame. So finally we have a front camera that can compete. It also supports a wider angle, so you get more in the frame, unlike the XR. So the previous iPhones do have a very cropped in image compared to the newer one, so that is definitely something I really like. So if you're a person who likes to take a lot of selfies, I think that $100 bump is well worth it because you get a much better front-facing camera. So that being said, if you are someone who does really pay attention to camera quality and something that you value very much so, don't even think about it. Make that $100 upgrade and go with the iPhone 11. I think it's well worth it. You get so many more features. You get a second ultra-wide angle lens, which is a super cool thing to have. It's very, it's something that you can use creatively so much. It makes you kind of think about framing shots in a different way. And since you have a little bit of distortion, it's very entertaining as well. So if you do enjoy taking photos, that's something that I think that you will really enjoy. And for $100 more, so if this was $200-300, I might have a different conversation, but at just a difference of $100, if camera is important to you, go with the 11, no doubt. Now, if you have the XR, is it worth the upgrade? That's subjective. Now, worth is going to be different for everyone else. For most people, I think they will be more than happy with the XR camera. It is a great shooter. You get some really good results. If you do love your camera system, if you do like having a great camera on your phone, I think it might be a worthwhile upgrade if you do want to go for it. But do realize that besides a few new camera features, you're going to be getting 90% of the same experience. So do keep that in mind if you do plan on moving from the XR to the iPhone 11. So that wraps it up for this one, guys. Let me know if you have any questions about these two, or if you want to, see a few more sample shots or whatever. I'll have some links to my social media right on the screen and down in the description below, so go check me out there. I will post a few sample shots that I am going to put in this video now over there, so you guys can check them out. And if you haven't already, guys, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be making a lot more iPhone 11 and XR content. Mainly, we're going to be comparing the two to see which one you should buy right now in 2019 as it is. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.